Hello principals, assistant principals, and curriculum coaches. This will be a short video update to discuss our data analysis process for our 3, 6, and 9-week checkpoints and to talk about some next steps of what we need to do now that our assessments are finishing up this week. So before we start talking about the 9-week assessment, let's reflect a little bit on what has been happening. So first of all, a brand new process, right? So we went from unit assessments to 3, 6, and 9-week checkpoints. When that first 3-week checkpoint happened, it was a shift for us. The data didn't look like what we were used to seeing. They were shorter assessments, less questions, and the same thing for the 6-week checkpoint. So I want you to personally think about what happened. What happened after that 3-week checkpoint? What did our PLC conversation sound like? So I had the chance to meet with elementary coaches, and they were saying a lot of it was just, this is a new test. How do we look at the questions? What do we do? But that should have shifted a little bit for our 6-week checkpoint. We had more data. So I want you to reflect on that. What happened at your campus? Did you meet individually with teachers? Was it done through PLC? Did we look at growth? Did we look at performance? Did we look at the test? Lots of different options out there, and not that one is, technically right for checkpoints compared to unit tests. But I want you to pause just for a second and think about what happened at our campus. Okay, with that, if you took a minute to think about what happened during the 3 and 6, these are some highlights that we wanted to bring up. So the first thing is, remember that checkpoints are about assessing student learning and their progress toward mastery. So we're trying to determine at that 3 and 6-week checkpoint, are we on pace? Are we getting there for that ultimate summative 9-week checkpoint, which is everything that we've learned during the 9 weeks? And with that, remember that the 3 and 6-week checkpoints are technically not evaluative. Not mean that you can't use it for a grade, but it's more for adjusting instruction and planning upcoming lessons, which is done through at the PLC level. So thinking about what did you do for 3 and 6, remember that we have to have these conversations during PLC. And well, what data do we look at? It really, for those first 2 assessments, is based on the student level responses. So if we have a test with only 5 questions, how do we view that data for it to be informative? Well, now we're looking at individual questions, individual TEKS. If 90% of my class missed question 2, why? Was it the wording? Was it the way it was presented? Did I teach it in only one way and it was assessed in a different way? So those are the types of conversations that teachers can have about individual questions. We have different reports you can run from Eduphoria, the frequently misspelled, the frequently missed question, which one was missed most often. You can look at TEKS and you can see distractors. That's the type of data you're looking at for 3 and 6. And it's important to note that for the 3 and 6-week checkpoint, performance may not be the best conversation, meaning approaches, meets, and masters may not be applicable for the 3 and 6-week checkpoint because it's not enough questions, but there is plenty of data to look at with the assessment and the TEK level. So when we start looking at approaches, meets, and masters, that's more for the summative 9-week mark. That's when we need to determine where are kids performing, where are our teachers performing. So that's just a little bit of background on the 3 and 6-week checkpoint. And if you were still learning the process, now we've gone through a full cycle of it, and we can shift that for our second 9 weeks. Also with this, remember, it's much easier to involve our kids tracking 3, 6, and 9 because we do have those tests happening at the same time. So it's important that our kids are also looking at this data and tracking. This is how I did on the 3-week. This is where I got with the 6-week, and ultimately on the 9-week checkpoint, this is how I performed. And remember, for accountability, growth comes first. So we're comparing that to last year's STAR to determine, are we on track? Are we going backwards? Or are we doing where we're at or doing better? So we need to involve our kids in that goal setting and tracking. So I know there's different forms out there. This is an example that we gave to special ed teachers during our last collaboration last week. So for example, this tracking sheet, you would put how this child did during 2019 STAR and then set a goal for 2020 STAR. And in between, you can see that we're tracking 6 and 9-week checkpoint data. So this is an example of what it would look like filled out, and it's supposed to be a work in progress with students. So for example, this student example is Alex. He had a 50% on his 2019 STAR. we ask special ed teachers set a 5% goal on that one. So when I go to 2020, you can see that Alex's goal is a 55. We're not going to chart that yet because we're not sure. So when we came in, we set a goal for the 6 week checkpoint at 55. We didn't get there. We had a 40. So we set a new goal and then we plot our 9 week data. Same thing for reading. Alex is struggling in reading. So we had a did not meet on 17%. We set a 25. Well, we got to 22. So we're going to keep stretching and see how we do. And this is an example, but lots of other ones out there. We showed this one during leadership where a teacher is tracking their data and also includes things like attendance and the different reading levels here. And then we could also look at an overall goal sheet for STAR. So there isn't one set form that you can use, but the example on the previous slide is going to be in the coach's drive. But make sure that our teachers are talking to the kids about the data, we're tracking it, kids are aware of their growth and progress. So now what? 3-6 is done. 9-week testing has been happening the last few days. We're finishing up today and tomorrow. So I want you to really think about what are we going to do at our campus. I know our teachers are already digging in and looking at their data as soon as it posts, but as a PLC team, as a grade level, as a campus, what will you do for 9-week data analysis? Now, as a district, we do have a set process that we are going to work through that will assist some of those conversations. And we covered this during elementary coaches, the principal meeting, secondary coaches. This is the first time you see it, but it's similar to last year. So at the campus level, what this first box is saying is that teachers should be reviewing 3, 6, and 9-week checkpoints on their own. The big thing for 3, 6, and 9 is that we're looking at TEKS, SE level data. And at the 9-week checkpoint, we're looking at the 3 levels of passing. So who's their assistants on that? The curriculum coaches. So coaches, you are that point of contact, that support for teachers of Eduphoria and pulling data for your administrators on your campus. Instructional services will be doing the same. Then 9-week checkpoint data will be provided to cabinet, and 9-week reports will also be provided to principals during the principals meeting. This is our new process, a little bit of a shift from unit assessments, but similar. Okay, so for our 9-week checkpoint, we are still going to use the assessment data reflection sheets that we had last year. So coaches are very familiar with this. Unless you're new to our districts, that's what this video is for. On the front page, we look at overall campus data, and we do rank that based on MEET's grade level. So I'm just going to do an example. If we have our elementaries and Surratt Elementary had the highest performance, they would be listed first with their percent of did not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. Remember, we're ranking based on MEET's grade level. Let's say Red Sands was next, they would list their campus and go on. So really only one person has to run this, and then we all will have that same data. Where it differs for each school is the teacher level data. So teachers' data is then listed here for your campus. So elementary, your entire grade level. Secondary, it would be your PLC team. And we're looking at did not meet, approaches, meets, and masters. Then on the back is where we dig a little bit deeper. Now, when we're talking about teachers, okay, we ranked them, but now what? So the first section here, the first row, is for our highest performing teacher. We need to ask ourselves, why did that happen? Why did this teacher perform higher than the rest? And how are we going to leverage that success? Is it that we're going to have that teacher share during PLC the strategies they used? Are other teachers going to go in and watch this teacher? Is it the composition of the classrooms? Have that discussion with your team, because remember, we need to celebrate this teacher. We need to acknowledge them for their hard work, but we also need their success to impact the rest of the team. The second row is about the lowest performing teacher. So which teacher struggled on this 9-week checkpoint, and then have that discussion. How are we going to support them? Is it because the teacher has a high number of English learners in their sections or their classroom? That may be a reason, but it's not our support plan. So we're not just listing reasons for data here, we're listing the support. We will model a lesson. The curriculum coach will meet with the teacher. We are going to review lesson plans the week after intersession. We're looking deeper at what the next steps are for that teacher. Then finally, we are looking at overall content. Several standards are assessed on the 9-week checkpoint. Which standard was our lowest? And what is the plan? Is it taught again throughout the curriculum? Are we going to review this during intersession, Saturday school? Will it be a PLC bell ringer for 3 weeks? Is it going to be an exit ticket? What is the clear strategic plan to help this overall TEK that did not perform well? So that's what goes into the checkpoint reflection sheet. And then this tells you who, how, and when. So number one, the coaches are going to complete page one because they're the data experts in Eduphoria. And when does that have to be done? Well, before you leave on intersession, since you're not on duty. So you have Thursday and Friday to complete page one of the reflection sheet. You can buddy up elementary with your other coach, with the rest of the coaches, because remember, everyone's first section is the same. So someone can help with that, team up, work on it. But the coaches will have all of this page one for every checkpoint that occurred ready for administrators before you leave to intersession. Then page two, where you're having those discussions of, well, now what? What are we going to do to support or celebrate these teachers? That will be done by principals and assistant principals during the 2 weeks of intersession. So during those 2 weeks, maybe after kids leave and we're working on in the afternoon, we're reviewing these reflection sheets and we're filling it out. It could be digital typed or just handwritten. It doesn't have to be typed, and you're talking about next steps. So this is by Friday, the 2 weeks of intersession. And of course, it could start tomorrow and Friday. And then the overall completed front and back plans in place. Principals, we have our next meeting October 16th. That's a regularly scheduled principals meeting. You will bring a copy of all of your reflection sheets to the principals meeting. So we're going to have an activity during that morning session where we're looking at these, we're talking about it, we're talking about our data and figuring out what we're doing to support our teachers. So just one more time, coaches, page one, you need to have all of that done before you leave to intersession. The page two will be worked on by the leadership team during the next 2 weeks. Then principals, you'll bring a copy of your reflection sheets on October 16th. Also, in the coaches shared drive in Google, these are optional forms, not necessary, but I know some of you used them last year, where you're tracking your overall campus data for your subject areas 3, 6, and 9, just to see if you are growing in those different subject areas. And then we also have a teacher level one where they can see their students compared to the campus, and did they have overall growth compared to the unit test or to the previous test. We'll take out unit there. So those are just some options there. But remember, elementary coaches, we scheduled this Thursday, which is tomorrow, the 26th, from 1 to 3. The central office lab is reserved for us to work on our reflection sheets. So the team will be there to help you if you get stuck with Eduphoria. We'll have paper copies ready if you just want to handwrite in, but we'll also have a printer available so you can run them. And during this time, the goal is to have all of page one done. Secondary coaches, you are welcome to come during this work session as well if you need that time just to sit in the lab and get it done. If not, then remember you need to get these done on campus before the end of day on Friday. Okay, so again, that's Thursday the 26th, central office lab to work on data. And I know that was just a real quick overview of our data process, but I just want to take some time to sincerely thank you for everything that we've done and that you've done on campus the last 9 weeks. I know it's been a shift with our new balanced calendar and with the different assessment process, and we truly appreciate everything that you're doing. And we're excited to start looking at our data and support our teachers. So if you have any questions about this video, or if I can assist with anything else, here's my contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me. And elementary coaches, I'll see you tomorrow, Thursday at 1 o'clock in the lab. And secondary coaches, you're welcome to attend also. And principals, don't forget, completed reflection sheets on October 16th. Thank you.